Hey yo, this is the Beyond the Dojo podcast. I'm Lauren.
I'm Jeremiah.
I forgot what order we do stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's because the camera is not straight in front of us, it's at an angle, so it completely threw me off. So I can't remember what we're doing anymore. Where are we? Yeah, anyway, so we had this really sweet thing happen in class. Hopefully I didn't say this last time. We had this really sweet thing happen in class, like last week or the week before. We have a bunch of kids. It's weird because we're in the middle of the summer when we're recording this, and normally we don't get like a ton of students in June, but we all of a sudden got like a ton of students in June. And one of them he's not special needs, but he does have like a learning disability. And it was funny. It was funny because in his intro class, like he didn't even speak to me at all. So maybe he was just very nervous, but he was in his first regular class and Jeremiah was teaching the class. And what is the name of that big square game you guys play?
Thieves and Protectors, we call it.
So it's like a big square of cones.
Right, and you have smaller cones inside, with one team inside with, our pool noodle swords, and the other team outside of the square there that has to steal the cones away from the other team. And the whole idea is to prove the fact that strategy and tactic is a big part of it, not just ability, speed, and athleticism. So we were playing that game with a lot of new kids. It was hard to understand or get the rhythm of it. And we did a couple of rounds and he froze. He didn't know what to do or couldn't conceptualize the idea. I just encouraged him to play one more round. Just give it a try. Keep on giving it a try. It's not that bad. And
I think it was his first round being like the dude with the lightsaber, and that was, or not the lightsaber. The first round of going to get to
trying to get it. So I think he was just afraid that the swords were going to be someone's going to try to hurt him.
Yeah.
I think that was what the issue was. I don't know what it could have been. A lot of things. You never know.
It was loud.
It was loud. It was really distracting. So I just encouraged him to do it, and he stuck there, and he didn't play a lot, but he stayed out. You know what I mean? Like he didn't go to the bench and sit with his mom. He just stayed out there and he kind of worked through it. And you could tell it was an internal battle the whole time. Like there was this dialogue in his head. He was like, wanted to, but then he didn't. Then he wanted to, then he didn't. And
But like right before the game starts, when Jeremiah's like coaching him up and like explaining how to do it, and he's answering all his questions, the kid's asking like a million questions, and Jeremiah got him to agree that he would do just one round of this side of the game. And the kid was like, okay. And Jeremiah said, thank you for being brave. And which I don't think you've ever said that to a student before. At least I haven't seen it. But
No.
But the kid's mom and older sister were sitting over here on the bench, and I was kind of behind them. And like the sister just like burst into tears because she was like, because it was very touching because he's obviously, his mom said he's never been involved in athletics. He hasn't had this opportunity before. She said that they've spent all their time in speech therapy, so he hasn't done anything like this. And so yeah, he was very nervous, and like the sister was just so touched, that he did have the opportunity to try to be brave. So I'm sure that she has been on that coaching end, trying to coach him up. So she was crying, I was crying, I'm holding my kid, and the mom's like patting her on the back. But anyway, it was very cute. And he did sit down after that first game.
He was not about it. You can't really. Nope. Yeah, and honestly, I don't ever want to force anybody to do something they don't want to do, right? But I'm never going to ask someone to do something they're incapable of doing.
Right.
I'm not going to put him in that situation. I try to encourage him to trust me, that, just trust me enough to try. And if it's not for you, then it's all good.
Yeah.
Right. So
but
it is what it is.
He at least gave it a shot.
Huh?
He at least gave it a shot.
He did give it a shot, and he came back the next class, so that obviously it wasn't too traumatic.
Yeah. We didn't scare him away.
We didn't scare him away by that. Sometimes you got to, with dealing with different personalities and people, you just have to figure out a language that they understand.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't usually use words like brave and stuff like that. That's not really who I am or how I teach, but just in that moment, I felt like that was the thing. He was afraid to try to and make a mistake.
Yeah.
I think it was fear of not being able to do it right, and then people getting the ridicule from or getting in trouble, I guess.
Yeah.
And
that goes back to the principle of the dojo is a place to learn and embarrass yourself, and it's it's okay to use some modern lingo, it's a safe place to learn and not expect to be killed, or at least it's supposed to be a safe place.
We're very strict about those rules. No one's allowed to talk any kind of crap to either one, anybody, even if they're brothers, sisters. No one's allowed to talk when someone's performing. No one, there's very strict rules about how you interact with other students when they're vulnerable, right? Performing in front of people are vulnerable. Trying new things are vulnerable. Things like that. We just are very, well, at least I'm like, I don't play that.
We try to do positive reinforcement, and the dojo allows you to have positive reinforcement. Obviously, you have to have negative reinforcement too.
Yeah,
you have to fail, but you got to have room to fail.
Yeah, exactly. There has to be an opportunity for you to fail and be okay with it. So
taking a slight pivot from that conversation, I mean, it's kind of related, kind of. Right. It's still karate, so I guess it's related. Right. We've talked about this a few times, and I don't think we've sat and talked with any high-level instructors about this topic. We probably should have that interview at some point with a couple of guys. Yeah. But we wanted to discuss how to show as a student that you are serious about learning or being mentored by a teacher. And obviously, like, we're in a different part in our karate, or different stage in our karate life than somebody who is a Q rank or who is just starting. But there's a lot of principles I think that are
I think they're
kind of universal. Yeah. So let's maybe start at like white belt level.
Like basic stuff. Show up to class.
Okay.
Give effort.
Yeah. Effort definitely shows that you're serious about learning.
All right.
Or at least that you don't want to look like an
idiot.
Ask
questions.
Okay.
Even if you feel like they're embarrassing, ask questions. And then be like we just spoke about, be okay to failing. Like just try it, and if it's not, I always tell the kids, you have to give me something that we could work from.
Right.
You can't just not do it.
Right.
You have to kind of do it. So that's part of it, I think.
Yeah. So I guess that courage of like being willing to kind of put what you're learning on display, because otherwise you can't get feedback. So if you're so frozen with fear that you won't even demonstrate, like when we ask a question, karate related question, or we say, hey, we want you to demonstrate this, and they just freeze and just won't. Sometimes like we know that they just maybe don't know it, but oftentimes they're just like, I don't know. Right. I don't know. And they just won't even try. And we're like, well, you do know, but you're not taking a moment to think about it. So if you're serious about learning, take a second to think about it and give me an answer. I'm not going to move on until you do.
Right. Well, that's for people that want to, some people do karate for different reasons.
Yeah.
Right. And some people just do it for the activity and the community and stuff like that. And some people do it for other personal reasons, and some people do it because they enjoy the art itself and want to improve. Yeah. And as modern teachers, we kind of have to have a good gauge on why that person's there, and kind of work from that. So we're primarily talking about people who enjoy karate, for karate the art, and we're trying to encourage them to be able to learn, be able to understand. Yeah,
because there's going to be those outliers where like, my mom made me come to karate and now I hate it and I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I mean, those people are not going to necessarily have the capacity, I don't think, to show us that they're serious.
and let's be honest, as a teacher, when you have students like that, we all have students like that where it's the parents are making the kids show up and they are doing it because they have to. I just simply tell them, I have a very honest conversation with them. Look, I know you don't want to be here. You know you don't want to be here, but that's between you parents and you. And since you're here, all I ask you to do is give me effort. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be the strongest or fastest. You just have to try. Yeah. And what has happened in the past is they say, okay, that's fair. They try, and then they become a little bit more interested, a little bit more, they like it a little bit better, and they're never going to be like, oh, this is my life. But at the same time, they succeed and they move forward in their karate, and eventually they tolerate it more than what they used to.
Yeah, sometimes you have to get through like just seasons of hating karate. Yeah. Honestly, it happens to everyone, and like I have to tell people all the time. I'm like, look, you liked it when you started, you hate it right now. It's because you're like, intermediate level or whatever. It's just because it's really hard right now, and eventually you'll kind of like it again. Like, it's really weird that after like 20 years of training karate, I really like doing like white belt level basics. Not like a white belt, but just sometimes revisiting those things, even though it was mind numbing,
right.
Early on, like revisiting that stuff in order to be able to perfect it. Like eventually you learn to like that stuff. So, but you just have to kind of keep your head down and keep going.
Yeah, you got to put your head and come on.
Japanese words come on.
So like, I feel like at an intermediate level, maybe intermediate level, like we'll say Q level, intermediate Q level, like sometimes there are some shifts as far as...
Well, for us, there's a shift in teaching, right?
Well, yeah, there is a shift in teaching, but I think also in how that teaching is being received. I feel like students who have some ego, who started with some ego, they can do okay until they get to intermediate level.
Yeah, because then we're correcting timing, coordination, structure.
We're correcting and correcting and
right.
correcting and correcting.
Yep.
And we kind of had a discussion before we started the podcast about a couple of different topics, and we felt like two of them kind of intermingled. And one of the ideas too is like when you get a student who has that ego and they haven't let that go and they don't take coaching well, I mean, there are obvious indicators that student is not really interested in being coachable.
Right. Well, there's coachable kids and uncoachable kids, and
adults,
right? And I hate to say it, but sometimes it's the social culture of their family, in a sense, like they're expected to be great at things that they've never done, right? And it's just they once you say okay, yeah, that's fine, then in their mind they're done. That's it. There's no more improving.
Yeah, there's no more going back and revisiting.
Right.
Hey, on Shodan for the millionth time. They're like, oh no, I did that as a wipeout. I'm done now.
Yeah, like I know the moves.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But the way I handle it as a teacher is I usually remind them that what you did last week as a white belt is no longer acceptable as a yellow belt. You have to be better. It has to look better. And I think some of that, for some kids and some adults, it kind of sinks in. It makes sense. There's a progression. And then some kids they just don't. They're just not coachable sometimes.
And I think if you're somebody who at least has enough humility to be able to realize, like, or at least get to the point where you're like, okay, yeah, I definitely have an ego, and so I'm kind of struggling with dealing with this.
Right.
If you can at least acknowledge that and try to check yourself,
right.
That is showing that you want to be coached. Like, even if at first you kind of reel back from correction, but then you kind of give it a second and you're like, okay, well, let me just try what they're saying. Like, I don't know how to explain that. Okay, in relationships, so this is my experience with this. Sometimes when Jeremiah and I have a spat or whatever, my first reaction is, no, I didn't do that. Or like, no, I'm not gonna take whatever he's saying, and I'm not gonna change this thing. So I can understand that from that perspective. I have a harder time understanding it as far as the dojo goes, but some people do react that way. So kind of the way that sometimes in a relationship you can be like, oh no, I'm not that kind of person, you're wrong. Well, sometimes we have students on the dojo floor that are like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not doing that. Recognizing that is a step in the right direction.
Right. And calling them out on stuff like that. It's easy as like, okay, well, you want to film yourself? We could film you real quick. I'll take my phone out and we could watch it together. Or we can stand in front of the mirror and I can show you exactly when, or point exactly when you're messing things up. It's not a demeaning process. It's a process of trying to lift them up. But sometimes you got to put hot air to lift people. Hot air rises in a sense. Sometimes you got to bring some heat to it. You got to be like, just be honest.
Yeah.
Again. It's hard. It's hard. It's generally hard. What I found to work, and it's not intentional, well, it kind of is the uncoachable ones. I tell them a correction and I move on. And if they do it or not, I really don't coach them up or try to explain myself. And then the next time I see them do something, or next time I'm watching them do something, I just tell them the same correction, because if they can't correct that one thing, there's no reason for us to move forward.
Right.
And sometimes they get tired of hearing the same thing over and over again. And then sometimes they're just, again, I don't know how to explain this. Some people just aren't coachable. They refuse to listen to what you do or what you say. And then I got to just accept that that's who they are. I'll give them coaching moments, and it might be the same thing 20 million times, but it is what it is.
We're going to pause the podcast for a second because the camera died. Jeremiah's mad at me because I forgot to put the camera on the charger. And so now we're using my phone.
Not mad is not the word. I'm not angry at you. I'm just...
He's just disappointed. I'm not coachable.
No.
That's what he's saying.
Well, basically. Basically.
So kind of flipping what you said... sorry, go ahead. Did you need to finish your sentence?
Yes, absolutely. I need to finish my sentence.
Go for it.
Because you know I'm correct in this point. I'm going to make sure everybody understands.
Go for it. I'll write it down.
I told her multiple times, hey, why don't you just charge the phone no matter what? Just turn it on, put it on the charge, and leave it there. It's not like it's going to burn the phone up. She's like, oh, I already got it. I already charged it. It's okay.
Charge it.
And then you open the phone up and like, oh my gosh, it's almost dead.
Camera.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, what happened was apparently the button got turned on in my camera bag, and it was on for a long time, like days.
Or someone didn't turn it off.
No, I did turn it off because I had charged it last time, because we had some students in here who were like, is that filming us? And I'm like, no, it's not filming you. It's on the charger. Anyway, flipping what you said on its head. If you are, so we're kind of, the whole point of this is like how to be coachable, right? Or how to prove that you want to learn from an instructor.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing the same correction.
You should be coachable.
You should teach, please. Exactly.
Put your camera on the charger. That's how you're coachable.
Elaborate.
Yeah.
Please, elaborate.
So if you're hearing the same corrections over and over again, homie, you should probably fix that. And let's just take this. This is not just for Q ranks, okay? Let's take this up into Don ranks.
Well, let's just say this too, though.
Yeah.
We go as far as so we don't teach an intermediate level. We don't teach the entire kata at once. We don't go through the entire thing.
Does anybody do that?
Put
in the comments, do you teach your students the entire kata in one swing, one class?
So what we do is we segment the katas, and at a certain level, we give corrections on the part they're working on, and we don't teach them. We don't teach the next section until they get it right. Mm-hmm. So
sometimes I'm not sure how many of these things we say over and over again on the podcast, or how many of these things we just say over and over again in class because I've heard them so much. I'm like, have people already heard this 100 times?
Yeah, well, we just say it all the time. So
hopefully this is your first episode you've listened to.
We're just repackaging the same message.
Same stuff. Just calling it a different podcast name.
Oh God, Lord.
Okay, so let's get into the fun stuff. So when you're past Shodan Nidan level and you hopefully have a very solid grasp of basics, and you are looking for maybe a different teacher, because believe it or not, oftentimes what happens is you get to a point in your karate career where you've either outgrown your dojo, or you've moved away, or the level that your teacher can teach you to is where you're at right now, and he can't take it any further. He or she can't take it any further.
Perspective shift or interest shift.
Or that, yeah.
You're looking for karate, but with a different flavor.
Yeah. So I think we have maybe talked about how to seek out instructors in the past. I can't remember right offhand. But if you have found an instructor that you want to learn from, and now you're the one kind of doing the work. You're the one, you're not just in a dojo. You are having to go out of your way in order to prove that you want to be coached by them. What do you do? Lesson 1.
Show up.
Right.
Ask questions.
Okay.
I
feel like we've already talked about this. Okay.
Be sincere. And do as they ask.
Right.
Even if you think you got it, just even put your ego aside and say, yeah, I did 100 million front kicks. Mm-hmm. But if they're saying to do it a different way, or emphasizing a different point, then honestly try to do that emphasized point. Mm-hmm. If you're looking to have an accent, their accent on your karate, in a sense, then you have to do what they ask.
And let's be clear.
That doesn't mean
some of y'all are out there seeking instructors to hook up with by name so that you can get some clout rather than actually learning from them. I'm calling y'all out. You know who you are. You don't actually want to learn from them. You just want the recognition for being associated with them. So check yourself before you wreck yourself, as the great philosopher once said.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You're only kidding yourself. These teachers been around for a long time.
They're not stupid.
They're not stupid.
Oh my God.
They've taught probably longer than most of us have been alive. Mm-hmm. They've seen hundreds of black belts, graded hundred of black belts.
Mm-hmm.
They know what's genuine, what's not. And when people act like that around them, it's so dang obvious.
Well, and
it's obvious to them, not obvious to everybody else, but it is obvious to them.
And even if like you feel like, well, I'm going out of my way and I'm like going to train with them all the time and I'm getting on the phone with them and I'm sending them videos, I'm doing this, that, and the other. I'm making an effort, but they give you correction. And you're not making it, or not making an effort to make it, because sometimes some stuff is just hard to do. Sometimes, like, have an instructor give you correction, and it's like freaking breaking your arm in order to fix whatever the issue is that you're working on. Believe me, we know. But if you're not even making an effort, they can usually tell.
Yeah, they know, and people like to say, "Oh, have a mind like a white belt," but those people are generally the ones that don't have a mind like a white belt.
Yeah,
it's hard to have an empty cup and be willing to learn some of the things you've learned when you're a kid.
I would argue that if you're looking at like true elements of a white belt and true elements of a black belt, maybe you have like the mind and empty cup of a white belt, but hopefully you have the humility of a black belt who's been through many years of training and understands what it takes to actually improve. So if you were truly ever a shodan, hopefully you were humbled enough by that point that you're carrying that humility with you through the remainder of your dan ranks.
Is this a general statement or directed toward particular people? Good Lord.
I don't know. Was it pretty specific?
Wow.
I didn't mean to direct to anybody specific. I just mean like, I just think back to like we talked about moving Zen, right? And we talked about how that book was crazy to read because it was like reading your own story in a different setting. That's how it was to us. Like the stuff that guy went through.
Is that your pronouns?
What? Moving Zen?
Us
and them.
Us, we?
Us, we. I'm talking about us. You and me. Us. The stuff that he went through is just, I feel like everyone's road to Shodan has at least some elements of that. Okay. So there's like a path that a lot of us go down. I don't even remember what I was going to say because Jeremiah just like started talking about us and we and them. Basically, if you go down that, I remember what it was going to. You feel like you're being crushed up to Shodan, basically. Yeah, you feel like it's just like really, really hard, especially once you get closer and closer to Shodan, and sometimes even beyond that. Yeah. If you go through that same path that most of us go through and it wasn't easy for you, then usually you have some level of humility by the time you get to Shodan. If you didn't go through that, then maybe you're an arrogant jerk. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know your life.
So to be coachable and to train under other people, you can't be an arrogant jerk.
Yeah, be humble, homie.
Yeah.
Be a humble homie.
Yeah. I think the other thing is like be honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. When you're training with someone else, just be honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. And I've thought this a million times. Someone would say something to me, and I'd be like, "I'm doing that, man." Mm-hmm. Or I'd say, "Look at my body type. Do you think I could do that? Mm-hmm. I can't do that. I'm not that flexible, or I'm not that quick, mm-hmm. right?" But
did you even try?
Yeah, did you even try? And what I've come to realize, so I'm going to use Rick Houghton as an example. Rick Houghton is complete opposite of what I am, mm-hmm. right? He's flexible, he's super athletic, he has a lot of these very smooth and very water-like technique, right? Mm-hmm. But then you look at me, I'm not going to be that way, right? And after training with him for a couple times, I realized, why am I training under this guy? What is he going to offer and improve to my karate? And what I thought was, the subtleties of understanding how to move that way can help me move better, mm-hmm. even if I don't look like him when I move. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of things he teaches that I'm not going to be able to do, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. But trying to do them teaches me how to move in a better way, to conceptualize and actually apply the movement.
And sometimes too, I think we've talked about this before, that sometimes you learn from an instructor and they give you a correction, but rather than internalizing specifically what they said, sometimes you're actually deriving something else from that.
Right.
So if you'll allow yourself to be open-minded enough to at least give it a shot, you may not learn from that specifically what they're teaching, for whatever reason, but maybe the way you conceptualize it is slightly different. So when Rick Sensei shows something and he's very fluid and athletic and has lots of mobility, he may be teaching one concept, but maybe we try that and like we actually get a new perspective on some movement that maybe we've been struggling with or whatever. And it may not be exactly what he was teaching, but we are getting the chance to learn that. But that's because, like, not to toot our own horn, but we are in that case going in with an open mind.
A little bit, right? I'm not going to travel 2 hours, 3 hours to go train with someone and be like, well, that was stupid.
I know.
Yeah, horrible. Why would you do that? Why would you waste your time and money?
Unless it's for clout.
It's for clout. The only thing, only for, social status.
Yeah.
The other thing is you don't necessarily have to look like the person you're learning from to be learning from them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like some people
gravitate toward those.
They train and they get the outward appearance of what one sensei does or another sensei does, and internally in the way they move, it's completely bogus.
Yeah.
But they look like the ending point is you could tell that's Nishiyama sensei and the guys that imitated what his form was, not what he was trying to teach, and then they all got bent knees and weird things happening that doesn't really work the greatest. So to me,
lack of understanding. A lack of understanding of what was being taught.
Right. You're not trying to you're imitating the shape and form so that you could connect yourself to that teacher, and B, you don't have to work so hard to understand the principle under it. You're just making the shape and going, oh, this is what it is.
It's interesting that you say that because I've seen people who have associated themselves with high-level teachers and have done that where they're copying the external movements and positions.
Right.
But it's almost like they pick up the quirks
of
the instructor, and when you pick up their quirks, but you didn't actually pick up what they were teaching, that to me is an indicator you were not genuinely trying to learn from them because you would have questioned what you saw, or you would have at least asked them something. And it's going to happen where you pick up the quirks of someone that you're around at least a little bit. But when that's all you pick up,
because I think there's a time when training under a new teacher, you kind of you're taking everything in and you're not really filtering it all. You're just taking it all in as best you can, and you pick up the quirks, you pick up their habits.
But you should also pick up all the good stuff that they're teaching, and if you've picked up that, then that's an indicator. Okay, you're kind of immersed in their teaching, but. When you see someone who's like, that like, okay, I know that this person has trained with that instructor, and I watch them do this thing with their hand when they go to step in and punch, and I know that's where they got it from because I've seen this teacher do that, but this person just does it for whatever reason. There's there's not really a reason to it, but they're doing that.
They're imitating
and this has literally happened. That's why I'm talking about this. I was so shocked the first time I saw it. I was like, wow, they actually weren't really learning anything because they wouldn't be doing that. It was a 1, 2, 1, 2. Anyway, whatever.
There's a lot of things, right? And not to make fun of those people, because honestly, you don't know where we didn't know. We only got a flashpoint of what they were doing.
Oh yeah.
And they could be just struggling through it, but at the same time, come on, guys. We have enough people imitating the old masters, the old sensei, and we don't have a lot of original independent thought or creativity or slight little differences in movement that our generation lacks that. We're just a bunch of imitators right now. I hate to say that because I don't want to discredit a lot of people, but what I've seen is to a point it's a compliment. Oh, you're a Nishiyama sensei. You could tell you trained with him, or you trained with Rick. I could tell, right? But then where's your original content? Where does that come from? Where are you making it your own, right? And that's a hard thing to swallow because it's like if we want this art to flourish and grow, we have to be a little more individualistic in our karate after a certain point of training.
I would just argue because Steve Ubel Sensei has also said that oftentimes he sees instructors picking up other instructors' movements, but they're not internalizing them, and not internalizing them in the sense that if you're picking up quirks, you're picking up external movement. If you're picking up the principle that's being taught, it's going to look different on your body than somebody else's. Right. And that's more of the personalization. It's not, and I think we've talked about this before. It's not different for the sake of being different. No, it's not individualized for the sake of being special. Right.
It's your body type and your experience and your understanding, your perspective that changes it slightly. Now, I'm not saying, completely change the technique just to change it to be
No.
original.
No.
Not at all. I'm just saying it,
Can I give just a easy illustration of this? If you do I think I maybe have used this before. If you do a squat, if you have a long torso and short legs like I do, when you squat down, your torso can stay more upright because your body weight is more centered.
Right.
So you'll keep your torso up in order to keep the center of gravity centered. You'll push the knees out. You'll be able to squat basically ass to grass. So you'll be able to squat your hips all the way down to your heels in most cases, barring any mobility issues. If you have long legs and a short torso, more like Jeremiah does, you will probably lean forward quite a bit because that's the only way that you can keep your center of gravity without falling backwards because your femurs are so long. So it's the same principle. It looks different on me versus
That's a great
him
example.
because your body style is slightly different. It's not changing it for the sake of being different. I'm not squatting upright to show off. I'm squatting upright because that stops me from falling over and allows me to more effectively do the movement. So that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
it's like,
no, I agree totally. That's a great example of what I was trying to get to.
and it's a simple version, but a lot of karate movements are like that. A lot of karate principles are like that. So if you're serious about learning from an instructor, you maybe learn the principle and all the variants, and sometimes if that instructor is very skilled, they can actually teach you how to do that for your own body and for your own style and your own whatever. That shows that you're genuinely trying to learn. You're learning from them, but you're not just trying to imitate them. I think obviously imitation is a great form of flattery, but another really great form of flattery is like, hey, I want to learn from you, but you are your own person.
Right.
I want you to help me be the best that I can be. I feel like that's
I think that's the key to learning from as a higher level. Yudansha, learning from other guys that that travel the world and teach and are internationally known. That's kind of where it comes to, right? It boils down to learning what they're trying to teach and
letting them be them.
Let them be them,
and you
be you. But obviously you're just I don't know. I agree. Yes.
I win. Okay.
As we record on her phone because she forgot to charge her camera.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever.
There you go.
All right. So what you working on?
So we're getting closer and closer to testing, and we're testing at the end of the month this month, and my main fear for ninja shield was the side thrust kicks. The guys at the dojo kind of encouraged me to say, their kicks aren't bad, but you're rushing everything. You're really rushing your kata. And I know that's a bad habit of mine. So I've turned my focus to being more, completing my techniques better, having speed within the technique, but not speed throughout the kata. I understand those ideas. I can conceptualize them, but to actually perform that way is a whole different thing. So that's where I've turned to is like, okay, I need to slow down. I need to show that I have the ability to make these stances and do these things without rushing and just getting done as fast as I can. Mick made a great point. He says, it's more impressive for you to create power within a technique individually throughout a kata than it is to just blast through it and hit them on. I'm like, you know what? That makes sense.
And make every move its own entity, basically.
Yeah. I know we don't have much time.
We have 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I'm going to do my best to learn how to slow down. And we'll see how it goes, because I know when I stand in front of the judging panel, the adrenaline's going to drop and I'm going to be zooming. So we'll see. Hopefully it works. It works. It's crazy because when we first started getting ready for the test, we were working through Teki Sandan. And Steve's only correction the entire time was complete your techniques, stop every technique. And it was like he knew that was my my kryptonite, and he just hammered it. And it's funny because when I do Teki Sandan now, I am very conscious of it, and I perform that kata differently than all my other katas. And I'm like, my dumb butt needs to apply it to all my katas.
Hopefully that's the kata they ask you to do as your backup.
That's a prime example of like a teacher and learning from them, not learning what they do, but learning from them. It takes me a while to get what he's trying to tell me, but when I get it, it makes so much sense. Like, oh yeah, that's me, and that's the problem I'm having. This is what you need to work on, without him being like, oh, you need to slow down. He's not that kind of teacher. Right. He will point out your weaknesses without ever telling you that's your weakness.
Yeah.
and he just works on it and works
and
on
it. Just tells you the same correction
over and over again.
And, if you're serious about learning, you'll try.
Yeah, and there's been many times when we talked to him, and I was like, Steve, I'm so sorry you have to say the same things over and over again. I'm trying, man. It's not connecting. And he's like, oh, it's okay. You'll get it one day. Maybe before I die. Maybe before after I'm dead. And
Morbid.
He makes this dark joke and he laughs. And I'm like, but
it's
there's
truth.
It's true. I'm like, I just feel horrible because I'm like, damn, man. So it is what it is. Mm-hmm. What are you working on?
I probably should have opened up the podcast with this because it's slightly funny, but also not. So we misinterpreted part of the syllabus. And we thought that what we were having to do was do our tokui kata, do an extra kata, and then possibly maybe do like application stuff or like answer questions or whatever. I guess I haven't watched a Don exam in forever, so for some reason that's what I thought was going on. Well, we asked Senor Langley to clarify, and he's like, you guys are supposed to be sparring. You're not old and brittle. You guys can spar, right? And I'm like, I saw this message at like 5 o'clock in the morning as I'm getting ready for work that we're supposed to be sparring on this exam. My heart's going like this in my chest. And I'm like, I can't keep track of what I'm doing. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like been nervous the past 2 days. Like sparring is not my strong suit. I enjoy doing it, but like tournament style sparring, I'm really not good at. I like to like get in there and knock somebody the F out and get out. I don't really want to do this like strategic thing. And I know I should be able to do it. But I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that it's on the record that I said for everyone to know. In case I embarrass myself, I am going into this knowing that there's a good chance that I will embarrass myself. So yes, I'm quite nervous.
That's a
but
winning
we're going to
attitude.
continue. It is a winning attitude, but I'm doing it anyway. So, if I come
yeah.
out successful, then I was wrong. But anyway, I don't have a lot of confidence in my sparring ability.
You know what?
I don't know what a Yondan looks like as who's sparring. So anyway,
it doesn't matter. You just be yourself, right? And you just go out there and do
yourself.
Well, listen. I've felt that in sparring, if you just do what you feel most comfortable doing, you will find success.
Run away and scream. Just kidding. It really won't be that bad, but I am nervous about it. I haven't sparred on an exam in like 10 years.
Well, you haven't taken an exam in 10 years.
I know. I gotta say though, that was actually pretty fun. I had to spar like 5 people on my last exam, or 3 people on my last exam. It was very interesting. I'll tell you about it sometime. Yeah,
3
people. Oh God, we don't have to spar 3 people, do we?
I don't know.
Oh God, I hope not.
Don't worry about it.
Anyway.
Dude.
All right. Anyway, we'll report back and see how it goes.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.